Well, hello. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Uh,
Hi.
and welcome to the back catalog listening party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Anne Heaton.
Hi.
and
Happy
it,
to be here.
and it looks like folks are ready for the party because
Yeah.
I don't. It seems like from a very informal poll I did on Facebook this week, it's been a week,
I
and it
agree.
feels like I don't know. Everyone's tensions are high, and everyone's just a little tense. And I feel like there's some colds going around. Anne and Anthony and I were talking about this before we came on that we all are kind of struggling a little bit with some colds and stuff. So I think we all need a good old fashioned listening party to kick off our
Mm.
weekend. And it looks
Amen.
like David got here a minute early. He was ready. Bright and sunny, although not all that warm up here in Andover. I'll be enjoying a Fulton Sweet Child
Mm.
Divine.
Nice.
Nice. And a local brew here in Minnesota. Connie saying
Hey,
hi from
Connie.
Richfield. William from Santa Fe.
Hi, William.
Chris from Savage, Minnesota. Beer o'clock. And Alan from Texas, martini time. Wow. And my mom coming
Fancy.
in from Connecticut. So wherever you are tuned in from, tell us where you are listening from. And it's Friday and it's happy hour. So if you are enjoying a beverage, tell us what you're enjoying or maybe a snack. Um, as I mentioned, I'm kind of struggling with a cold here. So I've made myself a hot toddy, combining happy hour
Mm.
with some medicinal things. So honey and lemon, and maybe a little bit of whiskey, but
Health brews.
mainly and steam. Lots of hot, stuff to clear out the airways right here. Tony, what are you enjoying on your
Well,
Friday?
yeah, I'm a little stuffy too, and have a show right after. So I prepared a special blend of herbal tea, some peppermint tea with a helping of local honey that I'm hoping will coat the throat.
Nice.
Nice, nice. And Anne, what about you?
I have a Bengal spice
Mm.
tea, which I love so much, and yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, it looks like we're all in the same boat with the mugs here today on the
Yep.
back catalog listening party. And let's see.
Oh no, Joni was sick too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Joni, I
Well,
know.
this.
And Anne, tuning in from Shakopee High School, also drinking tea. And let's see, we have someone from Evanston
Hi, Adam.
and more Michigan in the
All
house.
Hi,
right.
Susan.
And some red wine and iced tea happening.
Perfect.
And Joe coming in from South Minneapolis. Well, thank you so much for all of you for tuning in. If you're new to the show, this is the show where we invite some of our favorite artists to revisit one of their old records today. And today, Anne has chosen her 2012 album Honeycomb. So we're going to be listening to tracks, talking about the recording, and answering your questions. So feel free to chime in the comments throughout the show with questions or any other thoughts as we go along. For those of you who aren't familiar with Anne Heaton's music, I've known Anne's music for I don't know a long time, and but it's been a long time since I've seen you, Anne, and I'm really excited to talk about this record. For folks who are not as familiar with your music, maybe you could give a little like 2 minute bio about like where you grew up and how you started making music, and in particular where this album fits into your pretty wide discography.
Yeah, I grew up outside of Chicago, and I started playing piano as a very young person. And I think at some point, since this is the 2 minute bio, I think at some point I realized that like writing stories and writing songs was very therapeutic for me, and that's how I got started. And I moved to New York City after college, after working as a White House intern and thinking I was gonna
Oh,
go
wow.
down this government path, and then realizing it was not for me. Um, and I was taking some classes, some jazz classes at City College, and I just sort of started going to the open mics in New York, and I met so many songwriters that I know to this day. We kind of grew up together out there. So, and where does this album fit in? My first record came out in 2002, and my most recent record came out in 2019. So this one's kind of somewhere in the middle.
Nice.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, that was the most succinct and
Yeah.
bio I have to say of anyone because it's hard to keep like your whole life into 2 minutes. But I am very excited to have you here and to talk about this record today, Honeycomb, and the track that you you picked to kick off the show today is The Alchemist. Is there anything you want to say about this before we dive into the music?
Sure. This song I wrote when was inspired by kind of a rough patch of depression, and I was on the road and I kept running into one of the themes of some of the songs on this record is I felt like the song was almost like stalking me, like so had been somewhere and I saw the book The Alchemist, and then like the next night I was in a restaurant and the person at the table next to me said alchemist, and like how often do people say alchemist, and then they don't, right? And then the next night I was in Long Island after playing a house concert, and the book next to the bed was The Alchemist.
Whoa.
So I really started thinking about like, what is an alchemist? What is alchemy? How can depression be transformed? And at the time I was reading a lot of Rumi poetry, and so some of the lines are inspired, like the "Make me a ruby, hold me up to the sun, melt me into one redness," is inspired by a Rumi poem, and I could say more, but I think I'll just stop there.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's give it a listen. This is Anne Heaton, The Alchemist, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
You have been fighting it with medicine. You have been fighting it by talking to a friend. You have been fighting it by not fighting it and surrendering. Make me a ruby, hold me up to the sun, melt me into one. Make me a ruby, hold me up to the sun, melt me into
All right. Anne Heaton here on the back catalog listening party with The Alchemist from her 2012 release Honeycomb, and joining us live here on the show to talk about it. And we already got a question from William. Do you feel self conscious listening to yourself sing in a setting like this? I feel like I'd be picking it apart. Perfectionism is such a double edged sword. And yes, we make all our guests feel uncomfortable because we make them not only listen to it, but have their faces on screen while we do it. So, and what are you thinking about when you hear this song? I know you've performed it live a lot over the years. But what does it feel? What are you thinking when you hear this recording of it in particular?
Yeah, I was just thinking that too, William. I was thinking like how weird it is because you don't really listen to yourself. You listen to other people. And there have been times in the past where someone will put on my record at a party and I can't do it, right? But for whatever reason, I'm okay with it. I was listening to this song earlier today, and I think because like Ellen and Anthony asked me to think about like the origin of the song, I was just more thinking about Rumi poetry while I was listening, and just remembering how when I read the poetry of Rumi, Rumi, for anybody who wants to look up Rumi, we actually named our dog Rumi because I like Rumi poetry so much. I just feel like connected to, I don't know, just like it's sort of a different consciousness. Like I don't feel isolated or disconnected, almost like a different viewpoint. So I was more like basking in that, and trying not to think about it, that it's me singing.
I was basking in the amazing production value of this album all week. I mean, when I was prepping for this, it's really stunning. We listen to a lot of records here, and the whole record sounds so good. And because I'm kind of nerdy this way, I'd love to know where this was recorded. Did
Yeah.
you work with any particular engineers,
Yeah.
producers, anything like that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So most of the record was co-produced with me and my friend Gary Maurer, who's from the band Hem. But this particular track was produced by Mike Deneen, who you may know has worked with like Amy Mann and Fountains of Wayne, and I don't know, Guster and Howie Day, because I felt like this song was a little more like I wanted it to have acoustic instruments like guitar and accordion, but it felt like a little more pop leaning that way. And Mike's so great at that. And Mike is just a fantastic producer. He passed away a few years ago, but he worked out of Q Division Studios in Somerville, Mass. And I'm really grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, it
That sounds
sounds
great.
so good.
Yeah, it
And
really does.
and on the vocals, there's a lot of layers of vocals on that. Is that mainly you? Do you have any other singers joining you on that?
I was wondering that today too. I was like, is that me or is that Rose Polanzani? Hang on. I felt like I heard Rose Polanzani at the end, but I'd have to put my glasses on to see. Um,
And by the way, I want to point out that what Anne's looking at, I think, is the actual physical CD
yeah.
version of her
Yes.
album, which she does have. So, some of the albums we listen to might be out of print or they're only available digitally, but this one you can still get a physical copy of. So if you're liking, I mean, this song, of course, we just heard one song, but that gives a great taste of what you're in for this hour. And if you want to buy it, it is available. We found out from Anne directly only, not anywhere else online.
Right.
If you PayPal her with a little note with your address, you can. It's scrolling on the screen. You can Venmo or PayPal, and you can get a copy of that CD sent to you from Anne in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I bet you she'd put a signature on it for you, wouldn't you, Anne? If
oh,
they requested.
absolutely.
And then you could
Absolutely.
read the liner notes and find out whether Rose Polanzani was singing on
Yeah,
that track or not.
Well, and I
It
highly
seems like,
recommend
yeah.
the high res version. This sounds great. This
Oh,
sounds so
thank
good.
you. Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Anthony. That's really nice. Yeah. Thank you.
And Joni said the idea that I am the change maker in my life is especially poignant right now. Also love Rumi. So yeah, I think
Thanks, Joni. Yeah.
it's a good reminder that we can all make that magic out of
Yes.
what's around us and what we have going on. And I'd love to know, this album, as you said, is kind of sort of, at least so far, kind of mid-career for you in terms of recordings. What was it about this record that out of all your really beautiful recordings you have, why was this the album that you wanted to pick today to
Uh,
revisit?
I picked this one because on December 1st, I had like a 20th anniversary, like of making albums, like online concert. And it was so incredibly fun. But I, I did like Black Notebook and Given and Blade. I did all those really early records. And then I was like, oh, I'll do a second concert later. But then I never did. I think I got like, I don't know if I got COVID. I can't remember what happened. But anyway, but there had been people that requested songs from this album. And I wanted to kind of give it a little bit of attention.
Nice, nice. Well, we're really enjoying this today. And if folks out there listening have questions or comments throughout the show, feel free to throw them in there. And this next track that you picked to feature on the show is "I Still Love You," and this is a song actually I played this week on my Women Folk radio show for Valentine's Day. The sadder side of Valentine's Day. And what can you tell us about what inspired this song?
This song was, I picked this one because it was a surprise and it just sort of showed up. And I, I don't know if you know June Millington, but she was one of the founders of the rock band Fanny from the 1970s. Like they opened for the Stones. So she has a place out with her partner in Western Mass where they host camps for girls, like rock camps and songwriting camps. And they let me come there for like a weekend to like songwrite. And so I did, and I was like working on these other songs and it wasn't working. And so one morning I just like went out for a walk in the snow with a cup of coffee, and this song just sort of, the beginning of it just showed up, and I was like, where did this song come from? So I ran back and started trying to like get it down on the piano. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's give it a listen. This is "I Still Love You" from Anne Heaton here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I still love you after all this time. I still love you though you are not mine. People tell me I'll get over it, and I know they're wrong, but I can't live with it. I still love you like a fairy tale, a sweet old story, but it isn't real. And I don't need you to be a part of it, but it's a part of me, and I make peace with it. I can live without you. Just not without loving you. So I let you go, even though I'm still loving you. I've got no more tricks on my sleeve. How can I reach for you now that I've made you bleed? I know your heart is on the mend, so the letters I write I'll never send. Never learn to live without you. Just not without loving you. after all this time, I still love you, though you are not mine. People tell me I'll get over it, and I know they're wrong, but I can't live with that. I can live without you, but I'll never live without loving you. So I let you go, even though I'm still loving you. Yeah, I'll be alright, still loving you.
Oh, all the feelings there. Anne Heaton, I Still Love You from her 2012 album Honeycomb, which we're revisiting today on the back catalog listening party with Anne joining us from her home in Milwaukee. Steve said my favorite song from this album, and it's a beautiful one. And it's so
Thanks, Steve.
interesting, Anne, that you mentioned that you wrote this kind of, that it kind of fell into your lap, so to speak, as you were having trouble with it and just taking a walk and taking a break. Ironically, when you're at a songwriting camp, like teaching songwriting, and you're like, oh, I'm struggling with my own song. So I'd love to know, like, yeah, what are your tips for? I know there's a bunch of songwriters tuned in today, and me and Tony would be interested in your answer too. Like when you're hitting that writer's block, what are some of your go-to tools that you pull out to try and get out of it?
Yeah, so they've changed over time, and they're also it can be different every time as well. So something I do now if I'm having trouble with a song is I'll actually meditate. Like if it's not working for a while, and just sort of see if something, like for example, I was writing this song with Teddy Goldstein, that the chorus was like seventh grade is a nightmare. It was like seventh grade is a nightmare. and we both really wanted to write it, but it was getting a little depressing. And I was like, I think I can't finish it because it's like, what good is this song going to do anyone? And so I meditated on that, and I kind of got the message. Like, think of someone who navigated seventh grade. Think of someone like Colorful who navigated in their own way. And then I remembered this woman, Tiffany from my junior high. I don't know why I'm telling this story, because I'm not going to play the song. But this woman from my junior high, like, she was not like a super popular girl. She was sort of maybe ignored and not paid much attention to. And I grew up on the North Shore of Chicago, where like the ability of girls to be mean was like very refined and terrible. And so anyway, she, like, the eighth graders somewhere in the spring were like, said something like they wanted to try drugs, which I don't even know what that means. It was the 80s. I don't know what drug it would have been, but she said, I could get that for you. And so suddenly all these eighth graders were giving her like a bunch of money to bring drugs next week. And I don't know how many hundreds of dollars she made. And then she was supposed to come on Thursday with the drugs, and she never came to school again. It was amazing. And I think she just like knew she was moving, like her family was like moving away, and she knew, and she was like, this will be really funny. And I thought it was so funny.
What a grift. I love it.
So instead of writing a song about how seventh grade sucks, I actually wrote a song about her, because she's kind of like my hero in a way.
That's great. I mean, just like what's relevant, like you kind of like looked at what would be relevant to someone who is kind of going through that. And I love it. Thanks for sharing that.
That was great.
And people were loving the sound of that. Alan and Steve said, sounds fantastic. And I just real quick, because when I was listening to that, I couldn't get over the groove of the rhythm section, like the amount of restraint in a song like that. We've talked many times on the show about how slow songs can be kind of hard to really keep moving and get the groove just right. And I thought both the drums and the bass on that track were phenomenal.
I wanted to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to say that the bass player is Joe McMahon, out of Boston. The guitar player is Kevin Barry, also out of Boston. And then the drummer is only drumming on this song is Mark Broder, and I believe he lives in New York. So they did a great job.
He really did. So did you like? How did you assemble all these different musicians? What was the process there? It sounds like folks from all over.
So I was living in Somerville, Mass at the time, and Joe is a friend of mine. I've played many shows with him and recorded with him. Same with Kevin Barry, and then the Gary Maurer, who was producing the record, he was like, I know a guy for this song. Like, I know a guy.
Cool.
I know the guy for this song. And that was Mark, who I didn't know. And he asked him to play. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
That's great. And do you were these songs you were playing out for a while before you brought them into the studio, or did you feel like they kind of got solidified when you were in the studio? Because folks seem to have a lot of different approaches to that.
That's a really good question. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I played them out a little, but not much. So they did become more solidified in the studio. Yeah. But the bones were there.
Did you have a
And
hand in the? Oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, did you have a hand in the kind of the producing of it then, like making some of those decisions? Because there's a lot of kind of intricate layers happening here. I was noticing
Yeah.
some keys over here, and nice sparse guitar coming in there, and like I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff because it really helps tell a story. And I'm curious
Yeah.
if that's something that you're into.
Yeah, definitely. I always like to co-produce. I like to bring someone else in who knows more than me. But I also produce records, and I love like layering and coming up with counter rhythms and things coming from different directions. So yeah, I love thinking about. I haven't thought about production in a while, but
Oh, this is a case study here. And while we're
Maybe-
talking about it one more time, I'm going to tell folks you got to go get the physical CD. You can get it directly from Anne. Just send $15 via Venmo or PayPal. We put the link or the information in the comments and send it to Anne. Let her know how much you appreciate this music, and then you get the high fidelity version with the liner notes and all of that. So just check the
Well,
comments.
since you mentioned the liner notes, I want to mention Brian Grunert is a graphic designer. He's done graphic design for like Ani DeFranco and Aeneas Mitchell and stuff. So he actually, here I'm going to show you. He actually made an image for every song on the record.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
wow.
So like you saw this one already, but then this is like the one for The Alchemist, and actually, and you can. I'm being really nerdy. You can actually change the cover by putting a different
Oh,
image in
that's
it.
so
I
cool.
love
So, like a lot of love and care. This is for the Prayer of St. Francis. This is for Last Drive. So
And that comes in
anyway.
the CD?
that comes in the CD. So,
Oh, my
Wow.
oh, this
goodness
is the one
gracious.
for I Still Love You that we just did. So.
All right, so scratch that. Send $30 and your mailing address. that is
'Cause
amazing.
you
And,
get you get like 10 times the covers or whatever. So
there's something. I mean, but that's the kind of thing that we really lose out on these days without having physical media. So I'm really glad that you shared that. That is really really cool.
Oh,
yeah,
thanks.
that's really wonderful. It's just icing on the cake. More layers of art that you can enjoy when you order Anne Heaton's album. And right now we're gonna hear another song. But I do want to ask. But before we do that, I want to ask because you were mentioning co-writing with Teddy Goldstein, and you are part of this group called Live from New York with Edie Carey, who's been a guest on the show, and some other great folks. And you were also part of Winter Bloom, which is a super group of like 4 female songwriters: Meg Hutchinson, Natalia Zuckerman, and Anja Duvakat. So, but you obviously play a lot solo. Do you miss kind of getting to tour with all these folks and collaborate? Because clearly you like, again, the layers of sound that you can get playing with other people live.
Definitely. I so miss it. And I get so sick of myself. So I love doing stuff with other people. It's so fun, and I definitely miss it, and I hope to do more of it again. From New York, we're kind of remotely recording a song right now that we wrote together, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. So that's kind of fun.
Wonderful. Well, we can't wait to hear that. And again, if you want to keep tabs on what Anne Heaton is doing and what her next project will be, then you can go to her website, anneheaton.com. But we are going to dive back into the music as promised. And Adam actually just said that Last Drive and Prayer of St. Francis are two of my all time favorites. Well, good news, Adam. Guess what our next song is? Last Drive.
Thanks,
so,
Adam.
Anne, is there anything you want to say about this before we power this one up?
Sure. If there's time, I would say that this song was inspired by when my grandfather was nearing the end of his life. He lived in a small town in Illinois. He asked my brother to take him on a last drive around the town, and my brother told me that story, and he said it was really cool. He pointed out things and told him stories that my brother never knew. And that always was kind of in the back. That was maybe 1995. That was always in the back of my mind. And it kept resurfacing. This is one of those, the song was stalking me, I feel like. And I'd think of it again and I'd be like, it's almost like the song would be like, will you write me? And I'd be like, no, I can't. It'll make me too sad, or it's too specific. I can't just write about my grandfather. It's got to be about everyone's grandfather. So I kind of kept dismissing it. And then one day in 2008, I went to this movie that was just Bach, music by Bach, piano music, and it did something to my brain. And when I came out of that movie, I was like, okay, I'm going to write the song. So I was like, I'll write it about my grandpa, and then when I'm done, I'll change it to make it universal. But then I never did. Once I finished it, I was like, I think it's okay.
Well, sometimes the more specific you get, the more universal it gets. So now this song, you included a separate audio track of a conversation. And do you want to? Is this something that's on the album, or is this something you just sent to us for the show?
So this is on the album, and this is just a little recording. My dad and I were talking. We were on a drive in that same town years later, and my dad had been telling me a bunch of stories about his family, and I was trying to record them to remember them. So this was just a little snippet that I decided to put on the album before this song.
That's cool. We'll give that snippet a listen, and then we'll go right into Last Drive. This is Anne Heaton here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
What's interesting at the cemetery for the Heaton side of it is that my grandfather Jerome's father and mother are buried there in a little different location. John and Margaret, they lived in Seneca. Yeah, they lived in a house which now is a park. They had, I think they had 9 kids. 3 survived.
What a hard life.
Oh yeah. I mean, you had to be really tough. You had to understand life was very precious, but it came and
It's short.
it's gone.
Yeah.
I flew planes in World War II over the ocean. We made loops. I saw my mother's face in the sky. I was only 18 when she died. Won't you take me for a drive? Won't you take me for a drive? Last drive, last drive.
Ah, beautiful. Anne Heaton with Last Drive here on the back catalog listening party from her 2012 album Honeycomb, which we are revisiting today with Anne joining us. And I agree, Joe. Great lyrics, melody, and a straight from the heart, beautiful story. And also those
Thanks, Joe.
layers of the vocals at the end are just so beautiful. And I have to know when you perform this live, do you obviously you have to change it up when you play it solo, but do you ever loop stuff or do you just sort of sing it straight?
I play pretty frequently when I play. I'll play with my husband, who sings and plays guitar, Frank Murata, and he. So obviously he's not going to do all those vocals, and some of them are really high. But he's a great harmony singer, and so we can do some of it.
Nice, nice. Well, I know you've been busy, not just with the music, but on the home front. You have two kids. You also are working on a master's degree. You are very, and you teach as well. And so I don't know if you're finding much time for songwriting these days outside of all those things, but are you working on anything new?
So something is sort of like coming a little bit. I mean, I did write some songs during the pandemic, and yeah, it's funny. Like there's always like a kind of a new flavor to a new batch of songs, but I'm not quite ready to record or say what exactly it will be yet. But there will be something
Well,
at some point.
well, luckily, you can stay abreast of it if you go to anneheaton.com. And also, you can, of course, she has a wide back catalog, of which today's album that we are revisiting is just one of many great records that you can get. And also, you can find out more about her teaching, her songwriting, and all of that stuff at anneheaton.com. But right now, we're going to get to a couple more tunes before you have to head out today. And this next one, I'd love to hear both hear you pronounce it and also hear if there's anything in particular you want to say about it before you take a listen.
Like, okay, I don't even know. Sin vergüenza, I guess I would say,
Yeah.
which is like without shame or really like shameless, I guess. But so really quick, I'll just say this really quickly. This is I used to go to this songwriters retreat called Lambs in Harbor Springs, Michigan, put on by John Lamb. And the cool thing about this retreat is that he gives every single person a unique song prompt, and while you're there, you have to write it on that prompt, and it's super specific. So this one was about a telenovela, and there were like names in it, and so at first I was like, I don't really know how I'm gonna find my way around it, but this is what came from that.
All right, let's give it a listen. This is Anne Heaton. I'll do my best here. Sin Vergüenza, here on the back catalog listening party.
Querida Renata, te amo mucho porque tú vives out loud, como decimos en inglés, with your married boss. You're such a temptress. By the end of the season, he'll love you best. You're irresistible, sin vergüenza. Dearest Paloma, how I admire you. Are changing careers late in the game, from lingerie to art dealer. And with so much going on, you haven't yet chosen between your living beau and ex-husband, but you always look good for both of them. And the smiting God, you know he never comes down to say, who do you think you are, Renata, stealing the lover of another? No, the smiting God, you know he never comes down to say, who do you think you are, Paloma, dressing like that and dressing like that? And the smiting know he never comes down. And for that hour I don't hear him in my head. And I can briefly live sin vergüenza. I'm as sexy as mashed potatoes here in my sweats. I'm as threatening as conference room carpet. I'm busy as a blanket, but I'm getting some ideas. Maria Contreras, how I cried for days after the accident at the lake and the donation of your daughter's heart. You took an aeroplane to follow the man who got it, to be near her beating heart a little while longer. And the smiting God, you know, he never came down to say, who do you think you are, Maria? You can't change the way things are. No, the smiting God, he didn't dare to come down, 'cause Maria knows exactly who she is. And if he did, she'd tell him right off in Spanish. No, the smiting God, you know, he never comes down. And for that hour I don't hear him in my head. And I can briefly live sin vergüenza.
All right. We don't hear enough songs inspired by telenovelas here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Anne Heaton with Sin Vergüenza from her 2012 album Honeycomb, which we are revisiting today. And I have to ask, Honeycomb, why was this the title you chose for the record?
Oh, I don't remember. That's a really good question.
And I love this artwork too that's on the or one of the versions of the artwork as we talked about. When you get the physical copy, it comes with many panels of art that you can slide in there. But I love this cover. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit about your classical training on the piano and how that influences your compositions, because in the last couple songs I heard things that weren't necessarily typical in folk productions and folk music, where it's almost like different movements and themes that repeat and come back. And I'd just be curious how you feel that influences your writing and your composition.
Yeah, I'm sure that it does. The first thing I would say is a lot of times, like, I don't know that it's not typical. It's just like something that my hands will do, and I'll be like, okay, that seems good, you know? But I think maybe the reason my hands will just do it is because of playing so many classical songs like Debussy, and, just that's like the first way I was introduced to the piano. But I think all the influences get in there because I used to love musicals, and then I spent a lot of time singing in a gospel choir in Harlem, and so I just feel like all the music that you learn and you take in and that you love kind of goes together and comes out. But yeah, probably the piano parts probably mostly come from some classical training, just because the hands just kind of do what
Just
they do.
what you do.
Although in the beginning, the songs were much more like intricate, and at a certain point, I was like, I just want it to be like simple. Like, I just want it to be like vocal and like holding a chord. So for a while, I swung maybe too far in the other direction. There was like no music, but I've been playing the ukulele a lot lately. So I'm gonna
Nice.
see if I can learn that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I feel like I experienced a similar thing where I felt like I wasn't writing the songs I wanted to write on the piano, being classically trained, and then I picked up the banjo where I knew three chords, and it was like so much easier to simplify, right? And I think that's why so many guests we've had on the show, when we talk about, oh yeah, this song I wrote it on a new instrument, and it was like a whole new path for me because it kind of breaks
Yeah.
open your thinking because you're
On
not
new routes,
tied to the intricacies of your instrument.
Yeah, I didn't know you had that story too. That's really cool. Yeah, I think it's really can help you kind of break out.
And Joni said, I think in reference to you talking about all the different influences coming in, the classical and the
Nice.
gospel, it's alchemized.
I love that.
Taking it full circle here on the back catalog listening party. Also, Alan, it looks like might have just ordered a copy of your record via PayPal or Venmo, which you all can do. Just throw $15 in your mailing
Absolutely.
address, and you can get a copy sent to you. Joni also asked, do your kids like to sing? Do they like you to sing for them, or are they like at the ages they're at now? Are they like, no, mom, don't do that?
They like to sing, but they're funny. They have like no stage fright. So we played a show at a coffee house, my husband and I, here in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Coffee House, maybe in September. And at the end of the show, like if people clap, you're supposed to do an encore. Somebody shouted like, "Do your kids sing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah!" And they're suddenly my daughters were walking towards the stage, and they're like, "We got this. We'll play a song." I was like, "What are you gonna play?" Like, and they knew like one song. They knew like "Lean on Me," and the next thing you know, they were just singing "Lean on Me." It was so funny. It
Love
was very
that.
funny.
That is
So
great.
yeah, I would say that they like it, but they also like to distance themselves from their parents. I think once one of my daughters said, "Mom, you write like lullabies," and I rock out.
I love that.
I'm
That's
like, cool.
great.
That's good.
That's awesome. Well, the time is waning here in the back catalog listening party. We want to make sure we get to this last song because a few folks mentioned it today as one of their favorite tracks on the record. So, this last song that we're going to feature today on the show is St. Francis Prayer. Is there anything you want to say about this before we dive in?
Not really. I just set this very old prayer and had some issues of worthiness around wondering how could I do it, but then I did it anyway. So
Excellent. This is Anne Heaton, Prayer of St. Francis, here on the back catalog listening party.
Make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Where there is sadness, joy. Oh, divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all of my soul. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
A beautiful meditation to end with today on the back catalog listening
Yes,
party.
indeed.
St. Francis Prayer from Anne Heaton's 2012 album Honeycomb, which we've been revisiting today with Anne. And I have to say, in addition to sort of in the early part of the song, you get sort of those choral sounds, which sounds like kind of sacred choral music. And then at the end, you get some kind of more Eastern sounds of like, I don't know if it was sitar or something like that, and bells and sort of some more chanting almost feeling. Did you consciously sort of bring in different sort of musical styles to embody this prayer that feels somewhat universal?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's also some talk of, I don't know, I can't say this like as a scholar, but that the person, whoever it was, St. Francis, journeyed to the East and brought back some of that mysticism, or tried to bring it back into Christianity.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really beautiful. And Connie and Joni and William all loving it. And this is just a taste. We've only had 5 songs of this really beautiful
Yeah.
record today. And I really encourage all of you, if you're liking the music, to buy this whole record or at least get the high-res files. But really, if you get the physical copy, you get to get all those panels of all the extra
Oh my
artwork.
gosh,
And
yeah, put those on your wall. And
yeah, it's
yeah.
just amazing.
Well,
And
and I was just going to say that we talked a little bit about the honeycomb title and picture, but just serendipity or whatever. Just this afternoon, I was reading an article about how honey is essentially like has like forever shelf life. Like it can live forever if it's properly sealed. And the article went on and on about how it's just this magical combination of ingredients that come together to make it this medicinal
alchemy.
Yeah, no, and it's but it's also like it's healing properties, and I feel like in a lot of ways, that's what music is, and it was specifically this hour for me. This has been a tough week, but I feel so much better, and I know that that's a focus of yours in your research and stuff too, music and healing. Maybe before we go, do you want to talk a little bit about that and what you're doing there?
Sure. I went back to graduate school to research how songwriting can be a social emotional learning tool or healing tool, particularly with teenagers. And I did that because I've been working with teenagers for over 10 years, like at the Grammy camps and at Interlochen and in the Berkeley summer programs. And it's amazing how you sort of see patterns over time. Like even when kids come just to have fun and like hang out for the day, they'll often choose like a challenge or a loss to write about in their song, like to process it, and then they leave happier. So it's been interesting to watch that process, and I just wanted to kind of learn more about it.
That's very cool. Well, it certainly comes through in just what you write about and how you present it, and I can't think of a more appropriate kind of imagery than honeycomb here. And just want to thank you so much for spending this hour with us today and sharing
Thank
this
you,
music
Anthony.
and the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Ellen and Anthony. Thanks for making my album title make sense.
It's
Well,
very clear.
sounds together, yeah.
I just feel so much better as I do after every episode. Music is a special thing, and it's special because it doesn't exist just from one side of the microphone, right, or the speakers. It's the community of people that make music so special, and that's why Ellen and I started this show during the heart of the pandemic. We knew that we needed each other, and so I just want to give us a big shout out to everybody who showed up today and who shows up here week after week to support independent artists like Anne and to keep this music going, because it's really the community of people, all the voices, people chatting with each other here in the real-time chat that makes it so special. That's the secret ingredient here, is that we're all together doing this, and it's very special. So I want to give a shout out to a special group of those people who believed in that idea very early on and decided to sign up for a Patreon that we had started to kind of keep this going. So it keeps the lights on here at the Back Catalog Listening Party. So a big special thank you to our Patreon supporters, Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, the Homestead Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Jake, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, and David, and maybe you, if you're interested in being part of this community. We'd love to have you, but really, we're just so happy that you're here and you show up every week. We'll keep showing up if you do.
That's right. And we got a question from William asking if this will be archived, and it is. Actually, all of our shows are archived up on YouTube, so you can check them out there. But also, if you go to our website, backcataloglisteningparty.com, you'll not only get the links to all the YouTube videos, but you'll also actually see show notes where we list the tracks, any extra links, or other things that might be of interest that we talked about, or extra background photos from the studio sessions or any of that stuff. So you can check that all out there and browse at your heart's content. Also, if you like this episode, like it, give it the thumbs up on YouTube, direct more bots to this gal, Anne Heaton. And also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified of upcoming shows. And I know a few folks actually, and interestingly enough, a lot of venue owners who've presented Anne over the years, more than usual, were on the socials today saying, oh, I can't make it today, but I really want to see it. Like Matt Winters, who booked the Postscript Coffee House at Columbia like years ago when you were just getting started in New York. He's like, oh, I can't catch it live, but I'm going to catch it on the archive. So lots of ways to stay connected with Anne's music, and you can share this with your friends. But mainly, Anne, thank you for spending this hour with us.
Oh, this was so fun. Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Anthony, so much for having me. And thanks to all the people who are here. You're so right that it's a conversation, so it feels really good. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and to all of you out there, hope you have a great weekend. And with our restorative honey drinks here on
That's
the
right.
Back
I have
Catalog
honey in my
Listening
tea
Party.
today, too.
Me too. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy out there, and we'll see you back next week for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party.
All
Cheers,
right.
everybody.
Cheers, everybody.